I think we were still going to Straw Hat, and there was this rock, and it was just a drop off, and then there was another like walk down on the other side, and he was like, "Can I jump it? Should I jump it?" So I was like, "Yeah, jump it," and there was this tree right there, and he was just about to jump it, and his snowshoes slipped off of the rock, and then he fell over, and he laid down on the ground for like 5 minutes.
Their canoe got away from them and didn't make the curve and just went bouncing into the bush with the big metal plate dinting the bottom of the canoe and coming through in one corner. So they then spent the rest of their trip with this canvas wood canoe and had black electrical tape all over the bottom where there's a big tear in the bottom and it cracks into the ribs.
Our brigade leader blew her shoes apart. There was no sole on the bottom of her shoe. She had the top part on and her sock feet running across a portage, carrying a canoe.
There was so much mud, he had to put his feet on his sleeping bag while he got dressed. And as he was getting dressed, the sleeping bag sunk deeper and deeper into the mud. Now, it was our last day, and so he decided that he wouldn't retrieve the sleeping bag. And we were thinking that thousands of years from now, some aliens will come or some archaeologists will come and discover the sleeping bag entombed in the clay and wonder how on earth it ever got there.
There were a lot of people who did cry, but especially like the winter trips, the overnight walk, it was 44 below that night.
And I wasn't expecting like the physical strain, like holy.
To do something like Outers again, I don't know if I actually would. Like I definitely probably go on a camping trip, but a camping trip isn't like Outers.
The cool thing is that there's still so many portages in Quetico Park that we call character building portages.
Oftentimes they'll whine and complain and look at you and make sure that it's actually raining on you too, and you're never laughing at them, you're just laughing at the situation, because yeah, sometimes it is misery.
We actually circled the same island 3 times before one of them said, "That dock over there looks familiar." And then all of a sudden the maps came out, the compasses came out, and they were mortified that they'd actually done that.
The kids were absolutely pushed to their emotional, intellectual, and physical limitations because wrong turns on Outers were routine.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's Von Beckler behind me. Man, yeah, the years take their toll, don't they? That was the first time we put the new canoes in the water. Built the canoes in shop. We carried them from the high school to Pete's Point. That's the first time they touched the water. We hadn't even paddled it yet. We put it in the water. He was the sternman, I was the bowman. Yeah, quite a thing. Yeah, 50 years went by, but I can vividly remember 99% of the spring trip.
So many times in our society we wonder why young people don't seem to be, moving on with their lives. And I think part of it's because there really is no initiation. And I think if we look back in history of men and women, there was always a sort of a graduation ceremony. I'm not talking about a high school graduation, but one where persons' strengths and weaknesses were tested, where they had to go above and beyond both mentally and physically. And so I think the success of the Outers program is that people go beyond and above, out of their comfort zone and into a very difficult time mentally and physically.
There was a German outdoor educator, and his name was Kurt Hahn, and he believed that the physical and the emotional went together, and you couldn't educate one without doing the other. He was way beyond his time. So he fled Nazi Germany pre-war, wound up in northern Scotland, running a series of outdoor education courses. Another fella named Lawrence Holt, who owned the Blue Funnel shipping line, became involved in the war effort, as did all of the merchant marines. What he noticed was the older guys who were getting shipwrecked at sea were surviving, and the young 19, 20-year-old merchant marines were dying in the North Atlantic, and he couldn't figure out why. And somehow Lawrence Holt and Kurt Hahn got together. Kurt Hahn just said, well, that's because the young guys don't know what they can do. So they started a 21-day seamanship school. And every new employee to the Blue Funnel shipping line had to go through the school. This continued throughout the war. After the war, Holt financed Kurt Hahn to start what we now know of as the Outward Bound movement.
They had a program the first year or two, maybe 3, where businesses in Minneapolis gave scholarships to our high school for kids to participate in the Outward Bound program in Ely. So you had to be chosen by your classmates and teachers. And I put my name in with 3 or 4 other people, and lo and behold, I got picked to go to Ely.
Atikokan actually developed its own guideline for courses of study that use the outdoors, and we were one of the first boards to actually do that.
Amazing to think that a principal or even the staff would give in to this. For your summer, we'd like you to go down to this school. Now, I was a kid then, and I remember this very well. My dad was away all summer. So was Art Rowe. And they went down to Ely and took part in the course as participants. My dad went on a 3-day solo. No food. No solo can. He ate a garter snake and a bunch of frogs to stay alive, and so did Art.
They felt or sensed they had that spirit of connection with the land, and they knew our own backyard was rich, and in some ways we didn't realize it. They're visionaries in their own right, and they brought the classroom, the inside class, they brought us out to the outdoor classroom.
This is how she's done.
It was very innovative as far as 1960s are concerned, and the reason was that we wanted to get away from just pure academics and challenge an individual mentally, physically and emotionally, because the challenges that you're facing you can't necessarily face by yourself. You've got to learn teamwork, you've got to learn how to work with other people.
You know, like I remember a couple of years ago with the girls, day 1, fully loaded, and instead of taking the right portage, they took the wrong portage to a wrong lake. And when they got to that wrong lake and they looked out and they could see a creek instead of a big lake, and they started looking at their maps and they looked at us, they were sure that they must have been in the right spot, because there's no way staff's gonna follow us over a wrong portage and do all that work. And we were right there with them, biting our tongues, and we know we're going the wrong way, right? And then they're like, holy man, they really are gonna let us do this trip. You know, within obviously the safety boundaries, and they're gonna make us or let us suffer if that's what our trip's gonna dictate.
Holy shit, man, I dropped down here, I got the front end, man. Let me drop. Got her. Oh! Woo! Good save, boys!
A student or a young man now or woman they're in their mid-20s, you haven't seen them in almost 10 years or maybe here and there. And that's the one thing you both remember clearly, you know? You don't think about, hey, remember that assignment in geography class or whatever, right? You laugh about it because it's so trivial and, you know, but that is something that you can't forget it, I don't think, good or bad.
And that's why it's good that Outdoors is a credit program, because I think a lot of people would go into it with thinking, oh, you get an easy credit, you don't have to do exams, right? But that was good. It got people into it that might not have otherwise. You need to entice the young with something, because at the beginning of the trip, it's a journey you sort of hear about all the time. It's 12 days and you know there's this 3-day solo in there somewhere, and so when you're leaving, you're kind of hesitant and wondering.
Until you go through that whole process, I don't think anybody outside Atikokan High School knows the depth that that program touches every one of those kids.
It was a big challenge for a lot of us, but it taught us skills and confidence, and I think it was an awakening, you know, to a movement from childhood, I suppose, to adulthood, both for the boys and for the girls. And
We were taught how to paddle in the shop on the woodworking benches because we had no canoes in the fall. Most of us never been in a canoe before. I'd been in a canoe like once or twice.
in the course of a 12-day trip, you know, these kids may have not been the best kids academically in school, and maybe they're not the most popular. Sometimes they have an inner strength and steel that comes out in this period of trial through the 3-day solo trip, trial through carrying heavy packs. And it was amazing to see some of these young guys that, you know, got these big heavy packs or canoe on their back, and they just never quit. And soon their opinion and their views are given more careful consideration by everybody else. And they come off these trips usually with a high degree of self-respect.
The big difference between like outers and just camping with your friends or whatnot, you got to go through that learning and working together. Like if I'm going on just a camping trip for fun, I'm probably going to be with people that I know well enough to know how to work with. But with my brigade, what I don't know very well, like witness firsthand that learning curve, and like not only learning how to do things like portage and paddle well, but learn how to work with each other, and it was just really cool. It sucked at the time.
Because it's hard even describing outers to other people. They don't understand what it's like. They couldn't. How could somebody understand being out in the bush for 12 days with a 200-pound canoe with just a group of students? No help from teachers.
But it wasn't a credit in those days. It was just a volunteer extracurricular activity, just like coaching the basketball team or whatever. I don't think you got anything extra for it, and I don't think anybody really knew. I think Bill Pruniak, whose brainchild it was, definitely had hopes that it would become something that would last.
The staff and the board and the high school management in general for carrying this program all these years and being so diligent to keep it funded, to volunteer their time to organize it. I think it's one of the great things that Atikokan has. What a great bunch of people, guys and gals that do this, and volunteers from the community as well that help to pull this together, and it just makes me very proud to have been associated with them.
We try and tell them, or brief them ahead of time about the difficulties they're going to experience. But you can talk all you want, but until you're actually doing it, it's just not the same thing.
Well, I think any parent having their kid away for no matter what reason you're talking about, 12 days is a long time to be away from your parents at that age, and especially when you consider what they've just gone through. And most of the parents know what they've just gone through. They went to hell and back with some of the stuff they encountered on their trip. Carrying that huge canoe through all those nasty portages, battling the weather, the bugs, the heat, sometimes the cold and the storms. And they're doing it with a bunch of other kids that have never done it before either.
Just please slow down. I'm trying, man. I'm on it.
And the canoes and the park, that's just a vehicle for getting the kids to learn by doing. It's experiential learning, and it's like trying to fit a round peg into a square hole, trying to compare us with these other programs and their way of doing things, because we just do things differently. We really let the kids learn by doing and trial and error, and that's something that doesn't happen in this day and age too often, is that just letting the kids have their successes be all their own and their failures be all their own, and let the program play out the way it has been for 50 years.
It was the sharing of experiences with each other and teachers during that outers trip that, for me, there was a huge change.
You put people under stress, you put people into physical and emotional situations that they would never, ever normally put themselves in. And they probably have no idea how they would deal with it. But they have to deal with it. And once they do, they realize that they're capable of doing far more than they ever dreamed they could.
One of the younger, smaller guys was being harassed by a bigger guy verbally and physically over a period of a number of days. That individual who was being harassed went on strike in the middle of the lake and refused to paddle until the bigger guy apologized. So the entire 4 or 5 canoes and brigades had to sit there while this got resolved. And it resolved itself by the smaller guy recognizing his strength And the bigger guy, recognizing that he needed his whole crew to pull and he had to show respect.
It's 12 days of face-to-face with the people in your brigade, some of whom you probably don't like very much.
And nothing has changed. Even today, we as staff believe, more so today than 20 years ago, that our students do not know what they are capable of.
The students are looking at you as a teacher, likely you've already taught them in the past, to give them the answers, tell them what they need to do, and you don't. When they think that you should have stepped in maybe or something, you haven't, and you let them make that mistake or, you know, suffer, and they're like, wow, they're serious. They aren't gonna just jump in and solve our problems for us.
When brigades really figure it out, the brigade leader isn't the only one leading. Everybody's taking a part in it. And that's kind of, I love that about Outers, is everybody has something to bring to the group.
Like, I wanted to get stuff done and then I could relax, but they might have wanted to relax now a little bit and just do everything a little bit slower. But like, I needed to get stuff done before I could just take the deep breath I can and go, and like enjoy the campfire and enjoy the food. Like, once everything was set up and once we got through the portages and we did it fast and efficient, then I could like start to relax. But like, once it wasn't done, like I was like, hey. And I think that's when they definitely get annoyed with me for sure. When you're out on the winter trips, you just walk around and you're so tired of those snowshoes that everything's just funny to you after a while. If someone falls, you can't stop laughing. Someone like jumps off a cliff and you think it's the funniest thing ever. And that's happened.
All the safety aspects of our program are Loctite. They're dynamic, always changing to incorporate new technology and stuff. So we're going to continue to fight to keep it the way it is, just because we know every piece of the program does something and leads to something in terms of their personal development. So whenever you take something away from our program, the way it is set up now, you're denying those kids of an opportunity to some kind of personal growth.
Slowly let go of it, Rick. Matson, are you okay there? Do you need help too? Set the pace, Matson. Nice job. Just a little. There you go.
The whole philosophy with Outers is personal growth, and there are a lot of ways to develop that. There's a lot of ways for that to become evident, and it really happens when you are battling adversity, physical, emotional, and you need help. You know, getting along with others and working with these other people and recognizing their contributions is really important in developing who you are and to actually mature as a person. And that's what Outers is all about.
They set a program in motion. Think of how many curriculums have changed through the years, you know, French, Latin, you know, auto, shop, but the Outers have stayed there, and it's a credit course, and it should be. You know, it should be treated just as important as calculus, because more important because of what you learn in life skills.
The philosophy has survived because of the increasing need for young people to become aware of what they really can do, what they really can survive in an inhospitable environment or under stress or under duress.
I was really surprised at how each person got their role down, and that we just sort of all figured out what we need to do and what people are best at. Especially during the end of the fall trips, like the last few trips, like double O and the last single O, portaging and paddling, we all knew exactly what to do, because by the last trip we knew who our best portagers were, we knew who our strongest paddlers were, we knew what everyone had to do.
The worst thing for us was the big canoes that Mr. Briggs's woodworking class had made over the winter of '65. And here we were, a bunch of 16-year-old girls trying to throw this beast up in the air.
They were the pride and joy of Bob Briggs, who helped build some of them. I can remember we tested a brand new one. They were light and they were easily maneuverable. But the only thing was, you had to treat them as though they were eggshells. You couldn't haul them over rocks. You couldn't drop them down after a portage because you'd break through the canvas.
We cut these big cedar logs down, hauled them out by hand, rolled them out onto trailers, brought them to the shop, got them cut and dried, and that's those first original canoes.
They made this wheel, and it was like a wheel on a wheelbarrow, but it was attached to a metal plate that fit around the keel, and then straps went up on either side and hooked around. And then you trundled this canoe along. And the wheel, of course, had to go with you. So it was a big, heavy metal plate, so it had to be hauled off and put on, and it was a lot of fuss, but still was better than falling under those canoes.
The canoes took more abuse than we expected, and everybody ran out of seal oil, so there was nothing to fix these canoes. So we had all the canoes brought to a solo camp. We went around with cups collecting the sap from jack pine, and we boiled it up, and then when the hot pitch was ready, we poured it over the canoes, and it worked beautifully.
I took the same outers this year, boys and girls, to Vancouver, Whistler for 5 days, like our tourism big trip. Away from home, first time on an airplane for lots of them, first time seeing the mountains. When they came home, they had nothing to tell their parents or anyone. They had Instagrammed, Facebook, Snapchatted the whole time, right? So there's no reason for anyone to come meet them when they got home and, oh yeah, how was your trip? It was shared all the way along, which isn't a bad thing, but it's obviously not happening with outers. Your mom or your dad, whoever drops you off, 12 days later you see them for the first time. And I hope that stays the same.
I mean, we don't have the same amount of students, but I think it's gained, I know people have left and their children come back for grade 11 so they can experience outers.
When you're younger, everything is like preparing you, like my parents are like, okay, I wonder if this will be good for outers. Like they're picking out pants that my sisters had before, or boots. And it's just like, from the moment like that you hit high school, it's like, okay, what can you use for outers? That's like 3 years in advance.
There's something about outers and just, I don't know if it's just the title or like the history of it and how it's such a tradition, and there's just something about it, and being an outer is just so, it's such a proud thing.
He just fought and he just went through it like as hard as he could, and he'd be under the canoe just moaning and like upset because he can't carry as much as everyone else can, but he just went through it, and every time he got out of the canoe he'd be like, I'm sorry guys, but he carried like just as much as the other guy did. He was just upset because he thought he didn't carry as much.
Good, you're good. Okay, I got in front of the canoe.
Nicely done.
That was good, boys.
If I was in the right mood for carrying, I could carry for a really long time, because some part of me would understand, like, this pain's not going to last forever. You're not going to go through the rest of your life with this pain on you. It's just temporary. And somehow, if my brain took that the right way, I was able to like shove away the pain I was feeling, and I could just go. Some days I couldn't do that. Like on some portages I couldn't force away the pain, but on a lot of them I could, and that's why I carried so long.
It's amazing because you would think something that hard wouldn't survive. Like people would be like, I don't want to do that. But they do, luckily for us and for the program. And it's not easy. They've heard all the horror stories. They've also heard all the glory and the feeling at the end, of course, which there's no way they understand that at the beginning. So the hardness of it and the difficulties got to be at the forefront of their mind. But they want to do it. They want to do what their uncle did. They want to do what their younger brother did, what their sister, their aunt, their grandma now, right? I mean, well, grandma did that, like I damn well better be able to do this.
With the 50th anniversary, it made me realize that because through my involvement in outers, it actually determined that I would stay in Atikokan. So that really affected my career as an educator. So I'm here. I stayed in Atikokan, and outers had a lot to do with that.
Like, you know, they really get it when on a portage they'll pick up your pack and carry it for you. And at the beginning of the year, they wouldn't even think, they don't even want to carry their own.
When I came home, it was so weird and everything was so futuristic, and I almost didn't like it. I wanted to go back, and I turned on my shower and it was way too hot. I wanted to go back to lake temperature.
The sound of automobiles was foreign after 12 days of none of that. Very foreign. You hear cars start up and they seem loud and rumbly. And
the bus ride was like 100 miles an hour. Like it felt so fast because we've been like paddling canoes for 12 days, and that's as fast as we've been going. And like going on my phone, it's like everything's just too fast for me. It was weird at first. You had to readjust to it all again.
The one brigade was actually tied their buddies to the back of their canoe and were towing them down the lake to get them to go faster.
Going through outers will like teach me, allow me to get used to that sort of crisis mindset, and like outers will allow me to like figure out who I am and how I'll act in a stressful situation, so that if another stressful situation that's not voluntary occurs, I'll know how to handle myself that much better.
I remember as a staff member, I wasn't necessarily in the best of shape, and there were some pretty tough portages. And I remember, going up a hill with Peter Burton in the front of the canoe, generously dragging me up the hill. And I said, "Peter, I got to stop for a minute. I got to stop," because I was just out of breath and out of what I thought was my last bit of strength. And Peter said, "No, we're not putting the canoe down. You got to keep going."
We had already brought our canoe across. I had carried that. I went back for a pack, and I was behind them when this happened. And I watched the whole thing. I watched her fall. Nobody else could carry, so I dropped my pack halfway down this portage, picked up the canoe with another girl from the other brigade, carried the canoe almost the full portage with her because nobody else could. And I just remember sitting there thinking, oh, I do not want to go back for my pack. And wouldn't you know it, we put the canoe down, and there is Mr. Fiore carrying my pack down for me. I was so happy. That was probably the happiest moment of my life. I could have cried.
Yeah, it's just an amazing way to end the year with the group of students that in a regular setting you would never ever get that kind of experience with them. I don't think they would ever trust you that much. They'd have no need to, and they wouldn't get to know you, and you wouldn't get to know them as much as you do. Like, there's a certain relationship with the student you drop off and put on their solo and then pick them up 3 days later, that it's hard to explain unless you've been there and seen it.
The 3-day solo was the concept that was totally foreign to me. I know, being alone by yourself in the bush and the school was telling you to do this. That was different. But by the time that happened, I'd been in a canoe with 6 other people for a few days, and I was glad to be by myself in the bush.
We got to the island, and then Mr. Fury's like, "Jesse, this one's for you." And I'm like, "No way." Because it was just huge and perfect, and it had the perfect fishing spot and that little bathing spot, and yeah, it was awesome.
I liked it. It was just 3 days of being alone. Well, also, there you are, just you and a bunch of other people the same age as you, and little tensions build up, and
You need a little break from everybody. That's all I'm going to say.
And we had the lousiest food you could ever imagine, called Camp Pack. The only good thing were the biscuits, the minestrone soup, the puddings. There's 3 puddings, and I think there was a spaghetti, but the rest,
A girl had they thought it was appendix. But then while we were on the island on Oriana, then the CBC plane went over and they flew this person out. Then they came back and said, "Since your solo's been interrupted, can we film you building your shelter?" And I mean, I hadn't had anything except dried mushroom soup to eat for a couple of days, so I said, well, for a chocolate bar, I'll build my shelter again. That was the currency on those canoe trips.
I had no idea I was going to do this, and I killed a turtle in solo. I found a snapping turtle, and I had a knife and a piece of club, and we had a little tin can. That's all we had, and I cheated. I took salt and pepper in a plastic bag. That was it. We weren't, and I still feel guilty about that. But however, it certainly made that turtle taste a heck of a lot better. Taking the turtle's life wasn't easy, and I was tired, and we didn't have tarps and stuff. We just had boughs and a lean-to. So I chopped this turtle up with this dull knife I had and a rock, and I took the leg and I boiled it. And I boiled it and boiled it, and I stuck it on the fire and roasted it. And I'm roasting it and roasting it. And I put a little salt and pepper on it, and the salt and pepper is the only thing that tasted good on it.
Yeah, we had our little tobacco cans with our 3-day supply of food, rice and chicken noodle soup.
No letters, no can, no food, no 30 feet of fish line, 2 straight hooks, and nothing else. Hence the salt and pepper I cheated with. Hence the turtle.
You take a 16-year-old now who's pretty much, since they can remember, been immersed in technology, and now you're going to take them for 12 days, and you're not going to get to text your mom or your dad or whoever, your boyfriend, girlfriend, every 17 seconds, You're not going to get to, jump on the computer whenever you want. It's got to be a huge challenge for them, even more so than maybe we even realize now.
If you're around to see the outers start their first trip, and then they come around all the way to the end of the 12-day, it's like 2 different people.
For them to sit out and write out a letter and put it in an envelope and get ones from their parents and their aunts and their uncles and open it up on solo and read it in their own privacy so no one but them has any idea of how they reacted to that. And then writing responses for some of them. They read a 5-page letter from their mom pouring her heart out to them, stuff that she probably can't say to them face to face ever. I mean, how do you, that's what would be lost without that program. You can't put a price on any of that stuff, right? And you can't explain it or quantify it.
In retrospect, you realize some of the things, like how it does make you, you're grounded. It really does become a part of you, and you have your place on the planet, kind of thing.
I remember a lot about that canoe trip. It's really quite surprising how it sticks with you. The first trip I took into Quetico Park was on outers, and Quetico is a beautiful place. I just remember being amazed that there was so many lakes.
And I can tell you, there isn't a trip that I haven't went through there where the outers experience hasn't been relived because, that's where we camp.
Don't film this, it looks like I'm barely doing anything. But what they don't know is that I carried the whole portage before this. So that's why I get to slack off.
They want to feel respected. They want to feel just acknowledged even, because they have nothing to compare themselves to. So they know, okay, you've done this before. Did we do okay? Like, did we fulfill the contract we signed? Did we fulfill the route we wanted to do? And I think they know deep down that, hey, it was a good trip. We've made it. We did everything. We worked as hard as we could. We left everything out there. There's nothing else we could have did. But even just to hear it, I think at the end, you get to tell them one last time, hey, we're going home now. This little family we created for 12 days, this experience is coming to an end. They think, or at least they're pretty sure they've suffered more than you have. So for them to hear at the end that, yeah, you guys, you did it. You should be proud of yourselves. If you're not, for whatever reason already, let me tell you, you guys, did a great job. I just want to tell you, it was an honor to be with you. And this year was definitely the case.
Actually, I think that was the thing that made me feel the most accomplished. Because doing the actual portages, everyone was pretty strong. And we did the portages pretty easily, and not too much swearing or too much difficulty. We're just working machines. We just did it. And it was pretty cool actually. At the end of the day, when he said, "Okay, guys, that was awesome. You did what you were supposed to do." That was when it was oh yeah, that's when you got the good feeling about how much you actually just did.
I didn't think I could do something like that, and I did. I didn't think I was strong enough to be able to do something that crazy, and I did.
For me, there's no better ending to a year. That last day, and you get to that meeting island, and that energy is, man, you can feel it. It's just, on either end, if you're with the girls, you're with the boys. It's like you both took off on a rocket ship. One group went to one planet, one went to another, and you've met up again now, and in a little 20-minute thing, you're just trying to get it all out. And that's all the built-up energy and emotion from the whole year. We come around that last corner, You see the people running from the point back and forth, and they're coming, and they see their parents, and the girls do their little tap on the paddles, and you just bite your tongue every year and you try not to cry because you're just, I don't know, that feeling at the end that we did something that we'll never forget.